This is a recorded version. New questions can't be taken. If you want to ask the question to the panelist, please join the live session every Saturday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time, or 4:30 p.m. IST India time. This is a recorded version. New questions can't be taken. If you want to ask the question to the panelist, please join the live session every Saturday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time, or 4:30 p.m. IST India time.
महापंथ यह योग है, सहज श्वेत है धाम, तेज पुंज सत्पुरुष है, कह हंसन विश्राम।
VYGOS is Vihangam Yoga Global Online Satsang, which is scheduled every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Indian Standard Time. Those who would miss to attend the morning session can listen to the broadcast replay on Sunday evening at 4:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. The aim of this forum is to give the entire world an opportunity to learn the ancient science of meditation and benefit from this pious service inspired by Sadguru Sadafal Devji Maharaj, the pioneer of Vihangam Yoga. If you are interested in learning the technique or want to conduct a program at your place, and for any inquiry related to it, please feel free to write to us at info@vihangamyog.org. That is info@vihangamyoga.org.
Jai Sadgurudev. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the listeners. My name is Subhash Chandra, and I'm speaking from Singapore. I will be the host for today's session. Our today's session is very interesting. Vihangam Yoga and the power of habits. We are collection of our habits, our behaviors. But sometimes we are having bad habits, and many times probably we are having good habits. But the point is, do we understand? Are we aware? Are we conscious about our habits? If no, then are we doing something about it? In our today's session, we are going to discuss a lot more about all these things, about our habits, some goods, some bads, and how Vihangam Yoga can help us enhancing, uplifting our current life to a better one. We have our panelists who would speak on this from various countries. We'll talk about them also more. But before we start, it is our tradition to invoke the Sadguru at the beginning of this session to bless us. So I would request to have our Swagat Gan and Mangal Gan right now.
आज स्वागत नित्य गुरुवर संत शुभागम आइए, अध्यात्म विद्या दिव्य ज्योति सोमरस बरसाइए। दोष दुर्गुण दूर करके शुद्ध हंस बनाइए, भेद गम गति ज्ञान गर्जन शक्ति द्वार हटाइए। खुले द्वारा शब्द सागर भक्त जन अनहवाइए, जन सदा फल विश्व शिक्षक, शान आन बचाइए, शान आन बचाइए। विश्व शांति नाम मंगल परम गुरु को ध्याइए, वर्ग द्वंद्व शांति दूर कर भाव भेद मिटाइए। सार्वभौम समष्टि सत्ता, समृद्धि सुख शांति धरातल स्वर्ग भूमि बनाइए, विश्व शिक्षक जन सदा फल नीति स्वर अपनाइए, नीति स्वर अपनाइए।
Today, in our this online session, we are going to discuss about Vihangam Yoga and the power of habits. My request to all the listeners would be to put your questions on slido.com/vygos. We would take care of those questions to whatever extent possible, depending on availability of our time. We have Vijay ji from USA. We have Sankalp ji and Raghavendra ji from India, and we have Abhinav ji from Australia in this today's session. To move forward, we are discussing about the habits, the bad habits and the good habits. If I talk about bad habits, have you ever realized whether it interrupts your life or not? Does it prevent you from accomplishing some of your goals? Or even if you know all these things, why do these exist in your life? Is there something where you need some help? And yes, today we'll be talking about the root cause of any bad habits or even the good habits, and how can we control these and make our life better and better and better. To proceed further, here I would like to invite Vijay ji from USA, who has been involved and engrossly involved, in fact, in Vihangam Yoga since quite long time. Currently, he is a software engineer working in US. He is Vihangam Yoga instructor since 2007, almost 12, 13 years. And he's a graduate from IIT Kharagpur, India. I invite Vijay ji today for reciting some of the couplets from Swarved along with the meanings. Vijay ji, please.
Thank you, Subhash ji, for the opportunity. Jai Sadgurudev, everybody. Swarved is the encyclopedia of spirituality. Whenever I need answer to unsolved mystery of life, I refer Swarved. So here I present few couplets from Swarved that may enlighten us in learning how to control our habits. Sadgurudev writes in Swarved, मन की चाल कुचाल है, जीव ही उवट चलाव, मन फंदा में जीव पड़े, बिन गुरु कवन छुड़ाव. The tricks of the mind is very evil. It drags the bliss-seeker soul into the trap of sorrow by giving the taste of temporary physical happiness. It is only through the Sadguru's spiritual wisdom that the illusion created by the mind shatters into pieces, and the soul regains the pious intellect to escape from the trap of greedy mind. Sadhguru further writes, in Swarved, he says, मन माया मरती नहीं, नहीं वासना नाश, यह शरीर मरी मरी गया, कर माया मन नाश. The reason for the sorrow in anybody's life is the reliance of the soul on the mind. The mind stimulates the greed for the physical happiness. An entire human race is trapped into the illusionary happiness created by the mind. Soul is so attached to the mind that the restlessness of the mind in turn makes the soul restless. The reason for all problems in life is the lack of ability to hold the mind at rest against all lures of physical subjects. When a yogi wins over mind, suddenly all restlessness and emotional pain disappear. However, controlling the restlessness of the mind is more difficult than stopping the waves of the ocean. Today, all are spending days and nights in fulfilling the need of the mind, and they happen to ignore the inherent need of the soul. Mind asks for the physical happiness, whereas soul has the need of the supreme bliss. People die thirsty while attempting to grab the physical happiness, though they always prove insufficient. But the trap of the mind is such that the soul does not get a chance to take a pause and introspect about the real need. Is it truly worthwhile chasing only after physical happiness, or the bliss that the soul desires lies somewhere else? How would the soul breaks out of the illusion of the mind? It can only escape when it learns to isolate itself from the field of mind by the practice of Vihangam Yoga, where the soul transforms to become the spectator of the game of the mind instead of being the prey or the victim of the mind's sin. So the way to win over the bad habits that is stimulated by the uncontrolled mind is to raise the spiritual wisdom through the principle of Vihangam Yoga, and develops the clarity within the self to know when to deny the mind and when to agree. The ability to deny the force of the mind develops through the first stage of Vihangam Yoga meditation. That's the power of Vihangam Yoga meditation. Sadhguru further says, देह बुद्धि बल आत्म बल की जय देव प्रदान, मन माया के युद्ध में विजयी होय महान. Through the regular practice of Vihangam Yoga meditation, one develops enough strength in the intellect, in the body and the soul, that it stays victorious in keeping the mind in check amidst the strong force of the physical subjects. Therefore, the technique of Vihangam Yoga is a boon for all-round development of the human race, as through the regular practice of VY meditation, one cuts down the deviations into useless stuff and stays in the progressive track as planned. That's the beauty of Vihangam Yoga meditation. Now, to conclude, I would share some secret technique. For the faster impact of Vihangam Yoga meditation in winning over restless mind, the respect for the master acts as a catalyst. Meditation works faster when there is rise of the sense of surrender by the means of the respect for the master. If your goal is to succeed in meditation, I offer you a secret technique. Please hold the respect for the master during the practice of meditation. Undoubtedly, your experience in meditation would be very transformational. Jai Sagudev. Over to you, Subhash.
Thank you very much, Vijayji, for explaining the couplets from Swarved. You mentioned about the mind, the soul, and the importance of Sadhguru in our life, even if when we talk about the habits in our day-to-day life. What is the cause of our habits? As Vijayji mentioned from Swarved, there are two entities. One is soul and another one is the mind. The mind is the one which connects the soul with this outer world. And our habits are very much connected to the mind. What are the causes for these habits, these behaviors, especially the bad ones? Is it a fear, or is it the circumstances around us, the environment, or something else? But whatever it is, if we are aware about these, the more important thing is there anything you can do about it? And in that respect, yes, Vihangam Yoga brings a strong pillar to help everyone to delete these bad habits and strengthen the good habits. In this respect, I'm going to invite Abhinavji from Australia, who is a project lead and software engineer in Sydney. And he has been practicing Vihangam Yoga meditation since more than a decade. Today, Abhinavji will talk about how one person can be benefited from Vihangam Yoga as far as the habits are concerned. Abhinavji, welcome to this forum, and I'll hand the forum to you for your further delivery. Abhinavji, please.
Thank you very much, Subhashji, and greetings to everyone from around the world. The concept of habits is one which we all grapple with in our day-to-day lives, and I'm no exception to that. As Subhashji mentioned, I've been meditating for around 10 years, but that has not changed at all my reflection on habits. It continues every day. And really what I'd like to talk about today is my own personal journey through this concept of habits. Because I think, like the spiritual sciences, the physical sciences, the world we live in, they all tell us a lot of things about habits. If you go to the front page of YouTube, or you go to Facebook or any social media platform, there's often millions of views on videos which are to do with changing habits. And it says a lot about us as people, as a humanity, as a collective. And what it really says to me, which really inspires me a lot, is that as human beings, we're constantly looking to improve ourselves. We are aware that there is room to grow, and we try to understand how we can grow. And that is arguably the most beautiful thing about us as human beings. And it's a good kind of starting point. If we were to look at the concept which we all have of what a good life is, if I was to give you a piece of paper and then ask you, write down from morning to night what your ideal day looks like, you'll probably write down a bunch of things in the morning, maybe some things in the afternoon around, what you do after lunchtime, and then near the nighttime, what kind of habits you have, maybe to help you sleep better or to reflect on the day that's passed. And the most interesting thing is that every time I speak about this with anyone, whether it be my friends, my family, my colleagues at work, even listening to people in the larger, more conveyed parts of society about how they structure their day. Everyone does it differently. But everyone does have a concept of what a good life looks like and what an ideal day looks like. So we know that we all have a concept of what a good day looks like, what an ideal lifestyle is. We also know that we have a desire to change certain things about ourselves. So I'm going to quickly replay a conversation I often have with one of my very dear friends. We often meet, every few weeks, and we ask ourselves each other one simple question: are you happy? And when we ask ourselves this question, it comes from a place of, very profound, love and care for each other, because we're very not good friends. But eventually the conversation turns into a debate. And what kind of debate it turns into is, okay, so you said you're not too happy. Why is that? And my friend will say, or I will say, okay, I'm not sleeping at the right time. I'm not waking up when I want to. And then we start to debate it. Like, well, why are you doing that? We've talked about this before. We all know that we should be sleeping 8 hours a night. We should be getting up a little earlier, starting our day fresh. So why do you do that? And we start to debate each other, really challenge each other so that we can help each other grow, help each other improve. And, as we've done this through the years, we've realized that everyone does this. It's not just us. Everyone does this in their own way. We all have a desire to change certain things about ourselves. And those certain things are habits. The concept of a habit is a pattern of behavior which we've developed over time. And, if we look at the science of habits, the scientists say that habits really are one of the ways the human body saves energy. So if we form a habit, there is a pathway in the brain which we are constantly going through in order to establish or to practice that habit. And if we have to do that, from scratch every time, then we're spending a lot of energy. But if the brain can save energy, one of the ways it can save energy is by saving that pathway. And that is a habit. So the science of all this says that it takes between 21 to 30 days to form a habit. And then after that, your brain has a way to remember how it does something without having to do it from scratch all the time. And the third thing which I'd mention, so I've mentioned two things. We all have a concept of what a good life is. We all have a desire to change certain things about ourselves. But we also know one other thing, that the ability to change yourself is one of the key parts of being a success. Whether you look at engineering, design, research, arts, history, anything, the people who are most respected, from what I have seen, are the people who are able to change themselves in a very small period of time. So when you look at young engineers or young writers, young journalists, one of the most astonishing things which they bring to the table is this ability to change how they approach something very fast. And we call that the ability to learn fast. And, we often say that's just because their brain is quite young. It hasn't formed all these pathways, all these biases, which, 10 years down the track, to change those things is difficult, is what we say. And often this is also something we bring out when we meet someone who is a little older and maybe we don't agree with something they do. And when we talk about it with them, they say, I've been doing this for so many years. How can I change it? It's a habit I formed in my teenagehood. How do I change this now? So, reflecting on that piece of paper, which you have in front of you, which says, what is my ideal lifestyle? Then the next question very naturally becomes, is your current lifestyle and that ideal lifestyle, how close are they to each other? How close is your definition of an ideal lifestyle and your current lifestyle? How convergent are they? And this is where the science of habits and the concept of habits really comes from, an appreciation of the fact that, we want to be something, but we're not there yet. And one of the key things here is to remember we're all a work in progress. If I was to say that I've been meditating for 10 years, I'm a complete work, I would be quite foolish. And I'm never going to say that. Even if I've meditated for, let's say 50 years, I am sure that I will not have got to where I want to yet. Because, we are constantly a work in progress. We're not perfect beings. That is what defines us to be human, in a sense. And to reflect on one other thing, the ideal lifestyle, which we've written down on that piece of paper, do you really believe that definition is complete? Do you really think that that is the most ideal lifestyle, and you can give that piece of paper to anyone in the world and they'll be able to achieve their goals? Most likely not, because, well, firstly, we all have different goals in life, but also because we know that our definition of what an ideal lifestyle is, that also evolves over time. So there's all these things, we know we have a concept of a good life. We know we want to change certain things about ourselves. We know that the ability to change is a key thing in becoming successful. And really, we know that all these things give us control over our habits. So now we reach the point of thinking about where habits come from. We heard about the brain and all that. But what does spirituality have to say about all this? What does the master have to say about all this? So, well, as we heard, or as we have heard in the Swarved, in Sadhguru Siddhartha Devji Maharaj's composition of his own experiences in understanding himself better, in understanding the cosmos better, habits come from and patterns come from the source of all kind of thoughts and patterns in the body, which is the mind, as well as the things behind the mind, which come, if we go a little deeper, would be the vrittis, the sanskars that we have. The most important thing here that we can really look at is the mind. The source of habits and turbulence, arguably, is the mind, mainly the source of turbulence. So the process of change and becoming capable of changing our habits has a lot to do with how well we can control our mind. And we've heard in the past about these different things as, being a process. The mind, you can't just control it straight away. It's a step-by-step process. And the way I like to look at it, and the way that I look at it every day, is in three ways: self-awareness, self-control, and balance. And really, it's very simple. If you know there's a problem in any part of your life, the first step is to be aware. This is a problem. The second step is to take steps towards controlling that problem. And this last step is to kind of replace it with something, or, choose to do things differently. And I'd like to kind of revisit that word problem. One of the biggest sources of stress in a lot of our lives is that we have things that we want to change about ourselves. But I'd actually like to say to you that, if you have that, it says a lot about who you are. It says a lot about how humble you are, that, there's certain things you want to change about yourself, and that you have room to grow. It's much more valuable in the long term to be like that, as opposed to thinking you're a completed work, because it gives you room to evolve yourself. So I'd say to all the people out there, even to myself, sometimes I catch myself saying, why am I like this? I hate this part of myself. But then I catch myself and I say, it's all part of growing. It's an organic process. So for a yogi, this process of observing your energy and observing the way you express your energy is the way in which we observe habits in a spiritual sense. And the delta of your change, so the time it takes for you to change, starts to decrease, because you become aware of things much earlier, and then you can start to control those things much easier and much quicker. So for a yogi, eventually they reach a point where, they take one they breathe in once, breathe out once, and they have changed something about themselves. It's a bit of a metaphor, but the point is they are so in tune with themselves that under the guidance of a master, they can observe what's going on, and immediately change it. And where we really reach is we develop only one habit in our lives. And that habit is the ability to continuously develop, observe, and change ourselves. So it's a bit of a kind of, we're going one layer deeper in that we're not forming habits which are such as going to sleep earlier or waking up earlier. The only habit we develop is the habit of change. And this has a lot of very empowering benefits. The primary benefits it gives us is, firstly, it gives us an appreciation of the fact that we are a work in progress. And we don't get too, over in our heads and too big-headed and think that we're amazing or we can do everything. And even in the West, in ancient Greece, there's a very compelling story about the father of Western philosophy, Socrates, who, he spent his whole life trying to invalidate something. A god had come and said that he was the wisest man alive. And the last thing he said before he died was, the only thing I've learned is that the wisest person alive is he who knows that he knows nothing. So that concept of continuously improving ourselves has kind of pervaded through time. And, it's kind of unfortunate that, unfortunate and fortunate that habits are closely linked to our sense of right and wrong. And society tends to look at people who have bad habits and put them down, and it looks at people with good habits and celebrates them. And, as we've gone through time, we've realized this is not the way to go. You shouldn't be looking at a person who has a bad habit and saying, why are you like this? What you really should be doing is empathizing and seeking to understand how that pattern of behavior has come about. And it's the same for us. Sometimes we catch ourselves doing things, and the question should be, why am I doing this thing? And when we meditate, when we start on the path of Vihangam Yoga and the meditation, which is a simple technique of 10 minutes in the morning and evening, we empower ourselves to become self-aware. And we empower ourselves to understand where things are emanating from, which is largely the mind. And, there's a great experiment in this very area in the psychological sciences. What a set of psychologists did and scientists did, they placed a rat in a cage, and they didn't give this rat anything except two choices. It could either drink from one bowl which had water and another bowl which had an addictive substance. And they wanted to see what would happen. Would it fall into a pattern of addiction? Would it form this habit of addiction? And this rat, it did become addicted, and over a week period, it lost its life. And with this psychological scientist and the scientists of that time concluded that addictive substances are extremely harmful to human beings and all living beings. Another psychologist came around a couple of years back, maybe a decade ago, and he revisited this experiment and said, you guys have placed this rat in complete isolation in a place where it cannot fulfill its life. It cannot look at that piece of paper and see, I can do all the things that I want to do with my life. And then you're surprised that it chose to be addicted to a substance that can give it some measure of dopamine or some chemical concept of happiness. And he said, let me run this experiment again. So he ran the experiment again. He placed the rat in a cage, except this time he surrounded the rat with everything that a rat loves in its life. He gave it a place to play. He gave it a friend. He gave it all the foods it likes, and he gave it that addictive substance as well. And what he found was that the rat never went towards the addictive substance. And what he concluded was that addiction and these concepts and these, escape hatches we have of smoking and drinking and, the habits which we as a society think are harmful, arguably they all come from a life which is not fulfilled. So when we look at a society or people in a society who are struggling with habits, We should not be disparaging them. We should not be looking at them and saying, you are not a good person. What we should be doing is seeking to understand how they have reached that point and looking at the piece of paper they have. What is their ideal lifestyle? How can we help them evolve that towards something they are happy with? The gift of life is one which is to be shared amongst everyone. It's not to be kept to oneself. So I wanted to make sure I make that small comment because, we all have habits which we're trying to change about ourselves. Some are more harmful, some are less harmful. The spiritual sciences, and it's a very distinct word, science. The master Vihangam Yoga, what he discovered is a way to completely reduce all of these things to a science. The energy which emanates from our soul enters our body and it drives the things we do day to day. But it's being dragged by the mind. So we have to control this mind. We have to enter this process of becoming self-aware, then applying self-control, and then balancing ourselves toward that piece of paper, which we all want to converge towards, the ideal lifestyle which we want to have. So in summary, Vihangam Yoga is a very simple technique, but it empowers us to look at the things which we do every day. It gives us this way to stop, reflect, and understand where things come from. And once you know where something comes from, you can start to take very important steps in your life. You can start to ask yourself questions. Why do I go to sleep late? Why do I try to, entertain myself at nighttime when I should be going to bed half an hour earlier? Why don't I make time for meditation, perhaps? Why do I do things which I know are harmful to my body? What do I want from my life? And as we heard and as we have heard, our life is a collection of habits. The time we have in our lives is defined by what we do day to day. And that is obviously a scary thing, but it's also a very empowering thing. If we can just learn to take decisions and change ourselves day to day, you can only imagine how great and how amazing we can impact ourselves and those around us. So with that, I think I will stop there and hand back to Subhashji. Jai Sudev, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Abhinavji, for your wonderful words. Few things I have noted from your delivery is, of course, related with being self-aware, the control, and the balance. The next two will come only when the first one exists, the awareness. Unless and until we are aware about ourselves, our habits, our behavior, we cannot do anything to control it or balance it. And Vihangam Yoga basically, again, helps everyone to make themselves aware about themselves. And the other thing which I noted from your speech is about ability to change is also very important. Just having a desire is not important. How much we are putting the effort to make some changes or make something good is also very important. We'll discuss with you more during our question and answer session. Thank you very much for your speech. I would like to request to all the listeners to put their questions, if they have any, on slido.com, or they can send their message on WhatsApp on a number +1 646 653 4926. Moving forward, now it's time for a bhajan, and I invite Sankalpji from India for the bhajan. Sankalpji, please.
Jai Sadgurudev to everyone. Thank you, Subhashji. So today's bhajan is the collection of lines taken from the Amrit Vani of our Sadgurudev. The title of the bhajan is Reman Do Din Ka Mela Rahega. This bhajan is basically an alert message for us in which it is clearly said that whatever we earn from this materialistic world will remain here only and will not go with us once we leave this materialistic world. Then what is that thing which will really be with us always, even after our death? That is nothing but the time spent in practicing the meditation, a bhajan performed in our life for the supreme power, that is Paramatma. So we must spend some of our time in seva, satsang, and sadhana, that is meditation, which will be the real asset for us. So here is the lines of bhajan. Jai Sadgurudev. रे मन ये 2 दिन का मेला रहेगा, कायम न जग का झमेला रहेगा। रे मन ये 2 दिन का मेला रहेगा, कायम न जग का झमेला रहेगा। रे मन ये 2 दिन का मेला रहेगा, कायम न जग का झमेला रहेगा। किस काम का ऊंचा महल तू बनाएगा, किस काम का लाखों का तोड़ा कमाएगा। रथ हाथियों का झुंड तेरे किस काम आएगा, जैसा तू यहाँ आया है वैसा ही जाएगा। तेरे सफर में सवारी की खातिर, तेरे सफर में सवारी की खातिर, तेरे सफर में सवारी की खातिर, कंधों पे ठठरी का ठेला रहेगा। रे मन ये 2 दिन का मेला रहेगा, कायम न जग का झमेला रहेगा। कहता है ये दौलत आएगी मेरे काम, पर ये तो बता धन हुआ किसका भला गुलाम। समझा गए उपदेश हरिश्चंद्र कृष्ण राम, दौलत नहीं रहती है, रहता है सिर्फ नाम। छूटेगी संपत यहाँ की यहीं पर, छूटेगी संपत यहाँ की यहीं पर, छूटेगी संपत यहाँ की यहीं पर। तेरे कमर में न अंधेरा रहेगा। रे मन ये 2 दिन का मेला रहेगा, कायम न जग का झमेला रहेगा। साथी है मित्र गंगा के जल बिंदु पान तक, अर्धांगनी बढ़ेगी तो केवल मकान तक। परिवार के सब लोग चलेंगे शमशान तक, बेटा भी हक निभाएगा तो अग्निदान तक। इससे तो आगे भजन ही है साथी, इससे तो आगे भजन ही है साथी, इससे तो आगे भजन ही है साथी। हर के भजन बिन अकेला रहेगा। रे मन ये 2 दिन का मेला रहेगा, कायम न जग का झमेला रहेगा। रे मन ये 2 दिन का मेला रहेगा, कायम न जग का झमेला रहेगा। Sadgurudev ki jai. Over to you, Subhash ji.
Thank you very much, Sankalp ji. Here, I think if we can make a regular habit in our daily life to thank God, to pray to Him on a regular basis, I think there is nothing better than that. And that's what this bhajan also says, that in our daily life, we should include the thankfulness to the God that we exist. Thank you very much, Sankalp ji. Moving forward, moving onward. Now it's time for question and answer session. And along with Abhinav ji, we have Raghavendra ji from India, who has been associated with Vihangam Yoga since quite long, in fact, from his childhood. And right now he is working in India. And welcome, Raghavendra ji, on this forum. In fact,
Thank you so much.
I would start a question with you. Abhinav ji mentioned about being aware and then control and the balance. Related with this, we have one question, in fact, and the listener has asked, how do I become more self-aware? I think it is very important thing to know. Many a times we are living our life, we are just doing our daily routine. Many a times we don't realize what we are doing, why we are doing. It's just out of routine. Probably we are not very much aware about ourselves. So the question is about how do we become more and more aware about ourselves. I think Abhinav ji mentioned about meditation, especially Vihangam Yoga meditation helps us to make us more and more aware about ourselves. But I think I would like to hear something from you also. How do we become more and more aware about ourselves?
Thank you, Subhashji. Thank you, Subhashji. So, a very pertinent question, and one that we come across with virtually every other month in the workshops that we do, especially for our friends in engineering and the quantitative sciences, where they have a lot of cause and effect kind of questions. So the first thing that comes to our mind is when we're talking to them about meditation is this part of self-awareness. And if I may just stretch this question a little further about situational awareness, whatever situation you are in, how do you really disassociate yourself and look at yourself from a second or a third party perspective? This is something that we are also taught in management, that because if we are in a particular situation, we are so engrossed in it. How do we break away from that and look at it from a neutral perspective, a sort of a different perspective? So this self-awareness, I have realized partly from personal experience. So I'd like to share with you that I've been practicing Vihangam Yoga meditation on and off. I wouldn't say that my habits in meditation of Vihangam Yoga have been consistent for the past around 30 years since I took the initiation as a child. But when I did take the initiation, I had difficulties initially, but I was in the company of people. So my entire family, so I'm a third generation adherent of Vihangam Yoga. So my immediate family, my brothers and my parents, they were all deeply into Vihangam Yoga. So that helped. So whenever I would realize that I am going out of sync, that was because I could compare and benchmark myself with a set of people whom I lived with, whom I had, the deepest respect and love for and affection for. And I could see that they were going in a certain direction that I was not. And that itself was my link with awareness. So I could compare myself with the situation and see that, okay, my parents are taking efforts. They're going out of the way. They're traveling to different distance centers. They're having darshan. They're doing work towards that. So that awareness came from a benchmarking sense, which I could develop because I was in the company of like-minded people who were heading in a certain direction. The reverse also worked. There would be times when they would be maybe in the, not in the peak, but in the trough of their habit. And so they would benchmark themselves against me. and they would see that, okay, I'm headed in a particular direction. I am able to get up early in the morning and do my meditation and have a good start to the day, and the difference it was making to me. So once they would benchmark themselves against me, they would then take corrective action and restore that equilibrium. They would get back into the habit. So that is one part of self-awareness, is to be surrounded by people or to go towards people who you think will lead you to that goal that you want to achieve. The second thing would be what Abhinav ji had said towards the latter part of his speech. Essentially, what he was talking about that I understood was, what is the purpose? So, my father would often tell me, you know, you don't begin anything without the purpose in mind. Whatever you do, if you understand the purpose very well, you will get it all right. This is what is really important. So when we want to know, like what Abhinavji said was, what is my ideal day going to be like? So there is a particular purpose behind that particular day. What is it? What is that higher goal that it's leading towards? Do I want bliss? Do I want happiness? Do I want great relationships at work, at home? And how do I want to lead my life? Once we understand the purpose, then we know how to get there, and that gives us a sense of self-awareness and the situational awareness. That is how it really starts. So I would say purpose first, and satsang, or the company of like-minded good people that are going to take you towards the purpose, second. I would also request Abhinavji to add a little bit more, because I know he has spoken, he's covered certain other areas as well in this particular question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Raghavji. I think all I would add and kind of elaborate on further is two things. So first, the point Raghavji made about surrounding yourself with the right people. There's a great, idiom or adage, however you pronounce it, in which we hear about in the world, which is, you are a function of the people you are around. And the kind of exchange we have with people who are around us is an exchange of energy and attributes and behaviors. And if we can surround ourselves with people who inspire us to grow, often you'll find that the attributes they have start to represent themselves in you. And the reason for that is, the spiritual sciences tell us that there is a constant exchange of energy between every person you meet. Where if you meet a person who thinks very negatively about life, you may start thinking negatively about life. If you bring a lot of positivity to your life, you'll start to see the people around you become more positive. So this exchange of energy is always going on. The second thing I'd say is, if you look at a river, let's say that there's something at the bottom of the river, but the surface of the river is very turbulent. So it's always moving, and it's very murky, and you can't see the bottom. It's hard to understand what is going on in the river. So the first stage of self-awareness is to become very still. So you don't want to, be very moved too much, in a sense. You want to be so still that you can observe what's going on. So the point which Raghavji made, which I'd extend to this as well, is that concept of being neutral, of being very still. So that's where meditation is almost a very powerful way to achieve that stillness. So those are the two things I think I'd just add on to what Raghavji already wonderfully shared with us.
Thank you, Raghavji and Abhinavji. When we talk about the habits, what I understand is, of course, our surrounding plays a major role, and this starts basically from our childhood. Many times we have seen kids have different types of habits, and they do all these things on the basis of who the people they are surrounded by, the society, and their own circle. And it is very difficult at probably later stage to eliminate all those unwanted habits which still they want to eliminate, but they are not able to. Similarly, even when we reach out to the adulthood, we grasp some of the other habits which we don't want it, but ultimately it is a part of our life, and we want to eliminate those. But it is very hard to eliminate these. Is it a point, I'm coming to next question, is it a point that we should not eliminate something or any bad habit, rather we should replace it with something? Because anything, if we are having a habit of a bad thing or even a good thing, ultimately these behaviors provide some kind of benefit to us. That's why we are still attached to it. Probably we don't know what exactly it is, but the real question which I want to ask is, whatever it is, if we want to develop good habits, or if we want to maintain our good habits where we are, why it is so difficult for anyone in this current world to maintain or develop a good habit? Raghaji, I'd like to start this with you.
So the most interesting thing about habits is, and when we look at conventional literature, as well as the deep analysis that Vihangam Yoga literature gives us. So you see, the Vihangam Yoga literature is actually literature that goes back. The source goes back virtually thousands of years, into pre-recorded history as well, when we may not have had the various kind of stimuli that we have today. We didn't have digital environments, and the kind of lifestyle that we lead today. We did not have to face the sort of uh, pressures that we face today, and yet the truths of that era hold exactly the same weight as they do today. There is absolutely no difference. So the stimuli, the environment has not made a difference in terms of the solution to the problem. And why is that so? Because the human body itself has not particularly evolved in the last few thousand years of recorded history. It is pretty much the same. So the solution works the same. And what would that be? To get into a good habit or to break a bad habit, there's a certain amount of inertia. Like we are taught in science, something like force is equal to mass times acceleration. So there is a certain amount of inertia, a certain amount of force that is propelling us. So there is inertia, and to break out of it, fine. So there is a frame of reference. So if I am traveling in a certain direction and I see, oh, I'm not supposed to be going there, I'm supposed to be going a little to the left. That's because I have a frame of reference and I see that no, there are other people going over there. So that's the example of good company. And so I need to have a course correction. Now, how do I make that course correction? One is to establish contact with those people. And okay, what can I do that can take me to that direction? The other thing is what Vijayji was telling us about was, it's really the secret. It's not the keys to the kingdom, if you were. If you have that amount of surrender, to the master, and this works when you have a perspective, when you see at all times of learning or habit formation. You see a child. If the child respects his parent or his teacher, he's able to break his existing habit and get into a pattern of new habits more easily. Similarly, when you go on, like Abhinavji had said, when your neural pathways are well formed and you have well formed habits, to break that mindset is very difficult. But if you have respect, like Vijayji had said, great amount of surrender for the master, you are able to break that habit and get into a new habit and even sustain it. So long as you have surrender, so long as you know that you're not perfect, that you are a work in progress, and that you know nothing actually. So surrender is most important. And I would say that along with surrender, if you are able to do seva, where you move your mind and body into a certain course of action, and you're working holistically, each part of you is working towards that goal, you will be able to break bad habits and get into new ones. Over to you, Subhashji.
Thank you very much, Raghavji. I think based on time, I'll just stop just quickly. We have one more question from Ravi Kumarji, who is mentioning that he has been trying almost since last 6 years to wake up during the Brahma Muhurt time, but he feels it's the toughest one. And he is asking how can he overcome this sleepiness and laziness. I think to wake up during the Brahma Muhurt, One of the interesting thing with what I can say on my own experience basis is probably at the time when you are sleeping, just definitely give enough time for yourself to sleep and instruct yourself before you sleep. Okay, you have to get up at the Brahma Muhurt and pray to Sadhguru and ask for his blessing so that he can help you to wake up in the Brahma Muhurt time. Looking at the time further, we would stop question and answer session for today. But thank you very much, Raghavendra ji, Abhinav ji, Sankalp ji, and Vijay ji for joining us today. I would quickly summarize after the Shanti part, and then we would close thereafter. Shanti part, please.
विराग त्याग की शांति हो, उदासीनता शांति, सेवा जित शिष्य शांति हो, सत्य शांति हो शांति। हे प्रभु शांति स्वरूप हो, शांति शांतिमय शांति, शांति शांति जन शांति हो, पूर्ण शांतिमय शांति। हे प्रभु शांति प्रदान कर, दूर हो सर्व अशांति, देव सदा फल शांति में, शांति शांति सुख शांति। हे प्रभु शांति प्रदान कर, दूर हो सर्व अशांति, देव सदा फल शांति में, शांति शांति सुख शांति।
Today, we discussed about habits and how Vihangam Yoga can help us to enhance our life by changing our habits on a day-to-day basis. Some of the important points which we can note down from today's discussion is the awareness is the most important one. We need to be aware what habits we have, and then we need to have the control over it, where Vihangam Yoga meditation technique actually helps us a lot. Raghavji and Raghavendra and Abhinav has very much emphasized that sadhana, seva, and satsang and blessings of Sadguru is prime to develop and maintain our good habits. We should not try to eliminate our bad habits. We should find something good to replace those bad habits. With this, we would close for today. Just one last thing. We are requesting every listener, please provide your feedback to us. The QR code is being reflected on your screen if you are able to see the screen. Otherwise, you can note down the link https://bit.do/vygos dash survey survey digit 1. Please provide your feedback to us. This is very important for us to hear from you as well. With this, we would close the today's session. Thank you very much for joining today. We would connect again next week. Jai Sadgurudev.
As the need of the supreme bliss. People die thirsty